Now, this year marks the 50-year anniversary since Cyclone Tracy devastated Darwin, killing 66 people, of course, on Christmas Day in 1974. Our own Matt Cunningham has put together a special commemorative documentary marking the anniversary. You can watch it here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Here's a preview.
And it's just that howling and the darkness and feeling that when you open that door, should you live through this, whether you're the only ones left. Hearing the stories of people that had lost their houses and that were out there in amongst it and were injured or didn't live the night, that terrifies me, you know, it terrifies me now and it did then. Mine, I feel over time now, is a survivor's guilt because I'm like this for, 48 Christmases is what I'm like at this time.
Yeah, incredible stuff. Matt Cunningham joins me live from Darwin now. Good to talk to you, Matt. Look at that beautiful city there behind you with the billion-dollar Parliament House and all the rest of it. It's just a totally different landscape to what was there 50 years ago. I mean, it was obviously a much smaller town at the time, but it was literally just blown away, wasn't it? The devastation was incredible.
It's hard to believe that the city was even rebuilt as it was, and that's part of the story that we're telling tomorrow night. Chris, yeah, you're right. 47,000 people roughly lived in Darwin back in 1974 when Cyclone Tracy made a direct hit on the city on Christmas morning. An interesting fact, Chris, at the time it was the smallest cyclone recorded on record. The wind gusts of Cyclone Tracy only stretched for about 48 kilometres from its core, but it packed a fierce punch. We saw winds, the official recording of those winds was at 217 kilometres per hour, but that was the point at which the official recording instruments at Darwin Airport actually malfunctioned and were destroyed. So the wind speeds were actually probably much higher, but it did an incredible amount of damage. Almost 80% of the buildings across Darwin destroyed by Cyclone Tracy. More than 25,000 people left homeless, and it prompted the biggest peacetime evacuation we've ever seen in this country.
Mate, you're too young to remember it, but I was a 12-year-old having Christmas in Adelaide, and the news was so slow coming out of Darwin. If this happened tomorrow, you'd be in the middle of it broadcasting live and we'd all see it on social media. But because the communications were down and no one knew what was going on, the rest of the country on Christmas night was starting to get information, and there were appeals for people to do what they could to help as they were evacuating people. It was an incredible time, but you've spoken to so many people who were scarred by it, and they're still very emotional about it to this day.
Well, it's interesting the point you make, Chris, because perhaps the most emotional interview we did was with a bloke by the name of Alan Haynes. He'd been at Midnight Mass here in Darwin. Midnight Mass, believe it or not, went ahead as Cyclone Tracy was bearing down on the city, but they soon realised they were going to have to get out of there quick smart. So he and his sister, he tried to get home, couldn't make it home. He stayed at the nurses' quarters at the hospital with his sister. But the point you make about communication was really relevant to him and his family, because his parents were living in Adelaide, and it was a week before his mother was able to find out that her son and daughter were actually alive. And he recounts the story of how she actually wrote them a letter, basically thinking that there was every chance that they weren't alive and just hoping and praying that they would be safe and well, and thank God they were. And that was a pretty common story, because communication out of Darwin, the point you make, there was almost none. People queuing at phone booths eventually at the Darwin High School for a 2-minute phone call just to try and let whoever they could know at whatever hour of the day that they were still here.
Incredible stuff, Matt. Look forward to it. Thanks for joining us. Matt Cunningham there live from Darwin. And that's on tomorrow night. Cyclone Tracy, 50 years on, 8 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time here on Sky News.